What's up guys, it's me, Reshit12, back with another Rim of the Midgard Dungeon Guide video. Today we will be discussing the Ice Tomb, a rather unique dungeon in my opinion. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand on the side, wait for the bosses to die even though you're ranged cause you're a bitch, then go in, kill the chest, easy peasy lemon squeezy, white back for you. Well guys, that was it for this video, I hope you enjoyed it, see you next time, bye. But if you wanna stay for a better video, you can always keep watching. The Ice Tomb Dungeon. I've always liked this dungeon for its insta-kill shotgun and its lag spikes that kill hundreds of people. But it's a dungeon you gotta love, cause who doesn't like free loot? Loot, that is, if you even get it. I mean, of course, except for the pirate cave, cause is there even competition? I will be covering anything this dungeon has to offer, from dungeon design to bosses and the loot they drop. So starting off with the dungeon design, you might notice that this dungeon actually reconsiders the layout of the original Tomb of the Ancients that this dungeon is based on. New players, be aware that this dungeon is not activated yet. In the middle you will see 3 bosses standing. You cannot hurt the bosses until you break the ice pillar standing in the middle of the dungeon. The ice pillar standing in the middle, also called Mysterious Ice Shot, has 30,000 HP. And 6,000 plus whenever there's a new player entering the dungeon. This dungeon has HP scaling, which has been updated from the release in 2017 of the dungeon. You have the 3 bosses, which is Frymar, which is the best reskin, Polaris, which is the not reskin, and Glacius, which is the Gap reskin. Of course, these bosses also have HP scaling, ranging from 15 to 20,000 plus per player. As soon as you break the ice pillar in the middle, the 3 bosses will activate. You can be near the bosses in the beginning, they will only shoot out weaken shots in the first phase, but be wary on the second phase, cause at this point they will be lethal. It is also a good point to say that this boss fight doesn't really differ from the Tomb of the Ancients fight. You do have a negative downside with the boss battle, like in the Tomb of the Ancients you have the quicksand where you can't step in it. Where in this dungeon you have the ice, where you're just sliding everywhere and have very bad movement. I can also say that if you hit the sides of the dungeon too quick, you will get bounced off the walls and into the bosses, so I cannot recommend that. You have to go easy. On the sides of the dungeon design, you will have snow, where you won't glide everywhere. So I would suggest you to stand there if you need health regeneration and such. This boss battle really begins with the same formula as you used in the Tomb of Ancients. Which is Frymar, or Bess, Nut, and Gep. So it's Frymar, Polaris, and Glacius. You will kind of recognize Frymar with his big shield and tanky look, Polaris with its kind of very wide shoulders, and Glacius as this warrior with a huge helmet and this fan going backwards. At this point you should also have cleared out with a group if this is going to be an FFA or a clean tomb. As I mentioned before, there is the formula, which is Bess, Nut, and Gep. If you don't do that, and it's a public tomb, I would recommend the melees to stay back as much as possible if they don't want to get shotgunned. If you feel comfortable playing melee, you should go in for the circling, because the bosses are going to circle around the room, you can go with them. If you're a knight, go in for the stun. All these bosses are not immune to any status effects. You can actually stasis, paralyze, daze, stun, do all these things with them. They're not immune to anything, so you can just go in with all these abilities and abuse the shit out of them. If you are ranged class, just stay at a reasonable distance, which is something you can consider yourself when positioning, and just shoot the boss. Now, for the real difficulty of this dungeon is probably the rage phases. This is a pure nightmare in these conditions with a very small arena you are fighting in. The bosses will not yell out of face when they go into rage, such as, "The end of your path is here." They will instead turn this red color. You might recognize this red color from your soccer mom's face when she realizes you've been up all night playing Fortnite instead of doing the dishes, not talking from experience. But holy shit, I swear you gotta watch it, cause these bosses go full Super Saiyan on your asshole as soon as they get into rage. Especially Nut. But luckily they made it so the angry housewife doesn't chase you all around the arena. There is a barrier, I'm not sure where it is, I think you're safe on the snow, but if Nut goes into its rage phase, or Polaris, you can just stand in the snow and you'll be safe. But the shots will still be able to reach you, so I would advise you to stay as far away from the bosses if you manage to. If the bosses just directly stands on top of you and starts raging, if you're a knight, stun the shit out of him. If you're an archer, go to Nexus. You can't do shit. Now for the reason that you might have entered this dungeon. The loot. This dungeon only really offers reskins of the original whitebacks in the tomb. Except for the prod. The reskinned version of that drops in the Permalord Frost event. Thank you, Deca. Thanks for making sense. But all things considered, this dungeon actually has some pretty good loot to offer. You have the whiteback reskins, which is something you can always use because it's a Pyra, why the fuck not? You have the Tier 11 reskins, which is shit, but a new player might be able to use them. Also, you have, of course, the Primal Ice and the Ice Shots, which is something you use in the event, which is actually very valuable. So, across the board, this is actually a pretty solid price table. Also considering that you can just stand in a corner and wait for the bosses to die and just kill the chest and get loot. You have a pretty good chance of getting a whiteback. I find myself getting a whiteback now and then, actually pretty easily. Much more common than when you do the normal Tomb of the Ancients. Also, this dungeon only takes approximately 2 minutes or so. And you're not in for much of a gamble, because you can just bring your most valuable character and just stand on the side and wait for the bosses to die. I mean, there is a chance you can get shotgunned, even from the sidelines, because the bullets will be able to hit you from the middle. But you just gotta watch it and don't stay AFK. After all, this dungeon is pretty solid. Pretty good loot across the table. Good bosses, not that much of a danger. You just gotta know what you're in for. You won't get any loot from the bosses, so there's no reason to get soulbound damage in. There's actually not that much of a risk. But I think this dungeon also just takes away the fear and the adrenaline boost you get when you try to go in and get the soulbound damage on the bosses. I would rate this dungeon 6 out of 10. Pretty solid. I mean, the boss design kind of brings up the score. I mean, look at these glorious bastards. That's an awesome sprite design. Also, this video was indirectly sponsored by BikuriBox12 because he kind of inspired me to make this video and I just love his content.
Sure, some of it might be disturbing, but who cares?
See ya.
It's so amazing and that's why I kind of tried to replicate it here. I'm not trying to steal his idea. I would actually recommend you to go check out his videos because they're absolutely amazing. Also, I suppose this video was hard to make. Not as hard as finding my dad after 10 years, but he is where he has been since. At the abortion clinic, picking up my sister. After all, this was fun to make. I hope you enjoyed it and can see my channel going this direction in the future. And if this is not what you subscribed for, you should better get going. But thank you anyway. Okay guys, that was it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Watch out for my next video whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. See you!